Hello, everyone, and welcome to Belize Tourism Futures. Today, I'm joined by Ishmael Quiroz, the Executive Director of BELTRAIDE. He's worked at the Inter-American Development Bank, the Office of the Prime Minister of Belize, and now leads Belize's investment and trade promotion efforts. Welcome, Ishmael.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
In this episode, we're talking about what it takes to build a stronger, more connected economy and how tourism fits into the bigger picture. Ishmael, can you please walk me through your background and how it prepared you for the role you're in today?
Sure, absolutely. So my undergraduate is in corporate management. I studied in the United Kingdom. And when I came back to Belize after university, I had the great luck of stumbling across an opportunity at Beltrade in 2004, which was a relatively recently established entity. The name was actually changed to Beltrade in the year 2000, and the office formally, set up. And so I worked there for a couple of years as an investment officer, and it was a great introduction to networking, to the business world, to government services. And I think it really was a springboard. And so when I moved into the private sector as a project specialist at a corporate group, it really had created a good foundation. And then in 2010, when I moved to the Inter-American Development Bank as a private sector development analyst, it really was that diverse perspective that they were looking for to grow the private sector portfolio. And so that was another great opportunity and exposure. And thereafter, I moved into the Office of the Prime Minister, specifically at the Public-Private Dialogue Desk. And the idea was to advance business climate reform. So basically, bringing stakeholders together from the public and private sector, identifying problems that they were facing in accessing government services, and making it easier, simplified, more automated, and just easier to do business in Belize. And so that was a natural, the current job at the head of Beltrade is just a natural progression from that. And I'm very happy to give you some more insights there.
And what made you decide or care about economic development in Belize?
My undergraduate studies actually focused on economics, and I think it was a natural curiosity from ever since I was a child, because I grew up listening to stories, from my parents and my grandparents about how entrepreneurship was so very critical to getting them to a better standard of living and their communities out of poverty. And so that was, I think, the first lesson learned in economic development, that it really takes hard work, it takes dedication, and entrepreneurship is certainly one avenue, of course, coupled with education. So I think that's where it started, to just really be passionate about a community, a country, lifting itself out of economic situations to have a better standard of living for everybody.
And how does Beltrade's work connect directly to tourism?
It's interesting that in retrospect and in reviewing that question, I realized that the work that Beltrade does across its very broad mandate is directly related to tourism. Um, to begin with, tourism is an export in services. And so, as the export promotion agency for Belize, it's definitely one of our priority sectors. And related to that, we specifically, through the Export Belize unit of Beltrade, provide handholding and advisory services to businesses, particularly micro, small, and medium enterprises, who have a product with export potential to get it there, to get it into the export market. And so that's one of the advisory services that we provide. And so, because tourism is an export in services, there is that linkage. And then that touches on the point of our mandate as the Micro Enterprise Development Agency in Belize. We house the Small Business Development Center, Belize, which has done tremendous work in advancing appreciation for entrepreneurship and capacity building for MSMEs. Um, and then, we also have a training institute or a training center, the Belize Training and Employment Center specifically. that provides job preparedness for the hospitality industry and other sectors. And so this is where it's a significant outlet of talent that feeds into the tourism sector. And then finally, our investment promotion mandate is really through the Belize Invest unit, is where a lot of tourism investors, property owners, resorts, hotels, tourism operators can access various incentive programs that the government has on offer. And so there's a linkage among all of these units of Beltrade that lead into each other and then ultimately have an impact on investment and growth in Belize.
Is there one program at Beltrade which you wish more like tour operators or resort owners would take advantage of?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the Belize Invest unit manages the government's fiscal incentives program on offer. And what this provides for is import duty exemption on the inputs of for a specific activity, for a specific project. And so properties, hotels, resorts, tourism operators, car rental companies have the ability to tap into this benefit. It's a simple application process that you complete. We walk you through that process. We put together a master list of the items that you would like to import over a specified period of time at a specific value. And then once it goes through the review process, the economic analysis, cost benefit analysis, it's ultimately approved or processed for approval by the Prime Minister and Cabinet. And once approved, you're registered in the system and you're able to bring in import duty free critical inputs that will go into your project expansion. So I definitely encourage tour operators to explore the benefits. Very interestingly, is that while a focus of the program is to augment and to encourage foreign direct investment, this is available for locals, and even more so. And I'm very happy to get into more details on that point.
Yeah. Do you have any examples off the top of your head of a resort or a tour operator that has successfully used this program to expand their business?
Absolutely. There are too many to name, but many businesses currently hold concessions, or it's referred to as concession and investment concession. Um, Many companies already hold that benefit, and others have passed through. I can think of one from way back when, Kenmar's Bed and Breakfast here in Belmopan, one of the pioneers of the accommodation sector in Belmopan, the nation's capital. And so they started off on a very small scale with a little expansion project, and they were able to bring in their furniture, their materials, their linens, um, that that with which they have been able to grow their business. And so it's an example of how a small local investor is able to get a break by not having to pay as much customs and import duty.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a really useful program, and I hope more, uh, more businesses can take advantage of it.
Definitely.
What's one piece of tourism data or insight you've come across that changed how you think about Belize's economy?
As you know, Lorenzo, 2024 was a record-breaking year for tourism in Belize, where we have surpassed pre-pandemic levels in terms of arrivals. And so there are actually a number of statistics that we can throw out. I can speak to the 21% increase in tourism arrivals in the overnight sector um, of 2024 over the previous year. But perhaps one of the things that really struck me was the almost 70,000 people that arrived in March last year, 16,000 arriving on one single day, the most in Belize's history. For a country of just a half a million people, that's significant. And so it really goes to show how far we have come in terms of the rebound, the recovery, the growth. We're leading the Caribbean in terms of tourism growth. Thank goodness that as a region, tourism has come back and it is growing, but Belize is far ahead. And it goes to our diverse offering, it goes to our authenticity. And perhaps then my favorite piece of data is the 659 tour operators that operate out of the Cayo district in Belize in general
alone. Wow.
alone. Comparing it to San Pedro, which is our main island tourist destination, it's comparable. Actually, it's even more than what San Pedro has. And so it goes to show how one district, in particular, the Cayo district, is a powerhouse of tourism potential. It's because of the absolute beauty, the majesty of the environment, the eco-friendly product offering, and that's exciting.
And when you are deciding on programs or incentives, how do you use data like this to inform your policies or programs?
No, I mean, we do have to um, use data in coming up with the design of policy if they're meant to be impactful and effective or even implementable. And so having this type of information can help point decision makers in the direction of what will actually make the most sense. Resources are limited, and we do have to manage, those limited resources in optimal ways or as best as possible. And so information and data like this, the statistics, the insights, and now with artificial intelligence, we're able to glean greater insights and trends, even forecasting. And so this is the kind of thing that we should be putting to use to help us come up with policy and programs that are as impactful as possible.
If Belize wanted to industrialize around tourism, where should we start?
Wow. So it's we're already starting. We are doing a lot of hand holding with MSMEs right across the country through, for example, the National MSME Roadshow. These producers of goods and even services feed into the tourism product, and they really add to that authenticity. And so, by helping them to scale their businesses, by helping them to formalize their businesses, and be more sustainable, they are able to really continue to really create a livelihood for themselves out of those small businesses, which oftentimes begin as hobbies or side hustles. And so it's very, very important the services that we provide to help small businesses develop. And so that's, I think, one step. At a much higher level, we're actively involved as a government in developing a national industrial policy with green and blue focuses for that policy, because it really does make sense for Belize to go the route of differentiating itself as sustainable, as eco, as green, as blue, even orange. And so those are our guiding lights. And so the development of that industrial policy will definitely help. As a matter of fact, Belize produces boats that we export that are comparable in quality to that produced in Florida. But it does need the policy support to really enable that to grow. And that's another example of what can feed into the tourism product offering.
Yes, excellent. When you're developing this policy, I would encourage you to look at how Guatemala has used tourism to scale its crafts and chocolate and local coffee, including adding premium packaging and storytelling, and also Indonesia. Like think about Bali, like the Bali aesthetic is
Mhm.
everywhere. Like you can see like coffee shops across the U.S. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best thing, but I do see a lot of countries leverage tourism to industrialize, and I think Belize can definitely take advantage of this.
You're absolutely right. Another example is perhaps Jamaica and its music scene. Not only in music as a consumable, but entertainment as well. And that reminds me that a national brand is important. BELTRAIDE is actually in the process of implementing a project funded by the Inter-American Development Bank that is looking to develop a national brand that not only us as the investment promotion agency, but that all stakeholders can use. The idea is really to have it aligned with and streamlined with the tourism branding of the country. But as an investment brand, it's meant to just really be what enables us to get our products out there, to be known, to really look at brand Belize and to have the 560,000 overnight tourists in particular who visit Belize annually to go back with our products, to import our products from their countries of residence. And so we're super excited about prospect of industrializing through leveraging tourism.
So I often have conversations with individuals after they visit Belize or just friends, and we chat about how often in Belize the products and services lack finishing touches, like the packages or the branding is off. Why does this happen in Belize? And is there a role for Beltrade to play in helping this challenge?
Absolutely. So to begin with, some of these inputs which we have to import are expensive, and so packaging and labeling is what it takes to really convince people to purchase a good. It adds to the misconception that Belizean produced goods are not of substantial quality, when in reality they're really good. They are organic, they're really high quality, they're unique. Um, and so it does need to be complemented by the packaging and the finishing. And so this is where Beltrade runs programs like the MSME enhancement program that allows micro enterprises to get a break from the import duty exemption on packaging and labeling inputs. So it's a program that has a lot of potential. We certainly want more people to be aware of it and to take up the opportunity. And apart from that, I think the hand holding with MSMEs to produce a quality product is certainly on offer and available, oftentimes free of charge. We're about to launch a Buy Belizean campaign, and this is meant really to highlight and to give prominence to Belizean products and to partner with supermarkets, stakeholders, to ensure that that level of prominence is given to Belizean products so that people know what we're actually producing and, have that, nudge to buy Belizean.
What's one sector outside of tourism that's doing something right and that Belize's tourism operators should be learning from?
Well, I have a feeling that you're going to bring this up later on. But the BPO sector is really, one that is doing a lot to have benefits on offer for their employees. And it's, one of the things that I think the tourism sector also needs to um, have an open mind toward, in terms of ensuring that employees have, good standards of living on site if they're living on site or even in the communities that they move to in order to get that job. Maybe the flexibility in terms of the scheduling is something important. And other than that, even public transportation oftentimes is the difficulty in getting to a place of employment. And other sectors are providing those services and benefits to employees. I know that some BPOs are actively investing in daycare facilities for their staff as a benefit. And so it's just some examples of how a sector is really doing a lot to accommodate, to support, to retain employees.
Yeah, a good point. I do hear a lot of friends and colleagues and owners and well, operators of tourism businesses say that the BPO industry is making it challenging for them to hire staff because the entry point, the pay is much higher in the BPO industry, and then that means it's drawing a lot of the talent that would normally go to tourism to that industry.
Yes, indeed. So the pay point, and as I said, the flexibility, um, maybe even some of the benefits that they're able to get um, through working for that sector. So yeah, it's definitely something. It's an area where we have to pay close attention to it, um, because it's a sector that continues to grow very rapidly. As you know, we're almost at full employment in Belize, and so I think generally it's hard to get employees. And so it's not only the BPO sector, but it's certainly a contributor.
Do you happen to know where other employees are going other than the BPO industry? Like employees that typically would go to the tourism sector?
I think there's a growing trend in the services sector in general. And so I think that definitely does also take away from the sector. I think there's also growing entrepreneurship, which is a great thing, um, because it really empowers somebody to have their own enterprise, their own business. And perhaps that's an area that is also taking away from the availability of people to work in the tourism sector.
Good point. Everyone talks about diversifying the economy. What does that actually look like for Belize?
There's work that we need to do to make it easy to do business in Belize. I think that ease of interacting with government and government agencies is it needs to be attended to in order for us to diversify the economy. By diversification, we're really saying that we want to have things, new businesses, new types of activities, new products, new services on offer. Of course, in order to get there, we want to encourage people to invest in the time, effort, and money that it takes to establish that type of diversity. Um, and so cleaning up our act, in terms of making it easy, automating, digitalizing services, simplifying, is going to be critical. And I think for Belize, it means just really, ensuring that Belize is a great place to do business in.
So, how do you attract foreign investment while ensuring all Belizeans benefit too?
Great question. I mentioned the fiscal incentives program earlier. This is, a tax break that investors can get the benefit from. We made recent amendments to it a couple of years ago, to enable particularly micro, small, and medium enterprises to take up the opportunities. And so there's a version of the fiscal incentives program that is a scaled down, simplified, easily accessible version of the program that MSMEs can tap into. And so that's one way in which we're trying to balance both the foreign investment, which is very, very important, um, given the scale of it and what it brings in terms of employment generation, foreign exchange earnings, innovation, etc., with the possibility of locals being able to participate as well. There's a growing trend, of local investors investing in tourism in Belize, and this is great to see. And I think generally it's because they're tapping into the benefits that are on offer.
So, how do you communicate with the Belizean public the services that you offer? What's your marketing campaign? How do you typically do this?
Well, this is where I get to do a promotional plug. We have the Belize Investment Summit coming up in September of this year, September 3rd to 5th at Sunset Carib in San Pedro. And that's an example of one of the activities, the initiatives that Beltrade leads in getting the word out about the opportunities available in Belize and about creating that platform for networking, for business to business engagement, for business to government engagement. So what we typically do is that we have both the Belize Investment Summit, and the National MSME Roadshow every other year. And so in 2024, we did a really successful National MSME Roadshow, taking support services right across the country to MSMEs. And so then this year is the Belize Investment Summit, which again is really meant to put Belize on the stage of the world to just really, get it out there that this is the place to do business. So interestingly enough, the theme for this year's summit is bridging markets and building resilience. And is really meant to position Belize as a nexus between Central America, the Caribbean, southeastern Mexico, and for our neighboring countries and investors to tap into the potential of Belize as that bridge. And so it's all about messaging. It's about getting the word out about what is on offer here. And so that's a part of our strategy.
How do you promote BelTrade to foreign investment?
So we typically attend expos around the world. We try to be very strategic so that then we can tap into the opportunities of specific markets, of specific profiles of investors and sectors. And so both for trade as well as investment promotion, we definitely have a presence out there in the world. We are leading the pavilion for the country of Belize in Osaka, Japan, at this point in time for the Expo Osaka. And the idea is really to have that, again, an outlet for people to learn more about Belize, Belizean products, Belizean opportunities, Belizean good practices, like, for example, the blue bonds and their impact on Belize. And so the idea is really to get out there. One of the things that we want to work on is really collaborating with our diplomatic missions around the world to really get that investment and trade promotion activity underway in a more strategic and active way. And so that's one of the things that's on our agenda.
And quick question around US tariffs. Are we seeing an impact of these tariffs in Belize?
I understand that some um, tourism properties and operators have seen, at least early on when it was just announced, have seen cancellations. And so there was that reaction. To what extent it's actually having an impact, it's not clear. I think it's still something that's quite fluid, but certainly something that we need to continue to monitor. We do hope that given Belize's strong trend in tourism growth, that it's that it balances out and that it's augmented. As a country, we're actively looking to connect with other markets, so with the South American and European markets for tourism arrivals, and even with our exports. And so the idea is really to proactively, offset, whatever impact the tariff situation might have.
Does BelTrade work with the BTB?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are collaborating with the BTB in our Belize Pavilion at Expo 2025 in Osaka, Japan. And the idea is really to showcase in a unified way Belize's both tourism and investment offering. And so that's one example of close collaboration. We often collaborate in attending trade shows. And apart from that, there is lead facilitation that we provide in terms of if there is a tourism investor, we would be introduced and then provide facilitation to the incentive aspect of it.
Final question. Looking ahead, what's your vision for Belize's economy in 10 years and how can tourism help shape that future?
Well, tourism continues to contribute significantly to Belize's GDP. That, trend needs to continue. Of course, we've seen how vulnerable tourism can be in the context of global shocks. And so we will want to do everything possible as a nation to ensure resilience of our stakeholders, of our MSMEs, of our tourism actors. And so, where I see Belize going is really continuing to tap into its natural assets as the draw, in terms of why people come here. And included in that set of assets are the people. We have an authenticity, a charm, a mystique about us. And the idea is to really grow that and to remain true to that. I would want to see Belize's service sector really step up in terms of the quality of training in hospitality, food and beverage that's on offer, and just really be the destination of choice. There is so much that we can offer both in entertainment and gastronomy, in the creative and cultural sector. And with this government's new focus on specifically those sectors, we're really hoping to fine tune, to develop, to ensure that the tourism product that Belize has on offer is the absolute best in the region.
My guest today has been Ishmael Quiroz. Ishmael, thanks for being on Belize Tourism Futures.
Thank you, Lorenzo.